the LaPorte County Commissioners November 20th meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. We'll call the roll. Mrs. Winsky?
Dr. Cora, Commissioner Matias.
Present.
Commissioner Mrozinski.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Consider the agenda, Mr. Mrozinski.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Fifth on the agenda today is considering the approval of our minutes for the November 6th, 2019 meeting. Mr. Mrozinski.
I would make a motion that we approve those minutes as presented.
Support. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Consideration of claims, Mrs. Winsky.
This week we have payroll ending November 8th, 2019 in the amount of $1,225,833.23, and we have miscellaneous claims in the amount of $1,145,071.47.
Motion to approve the claims as presented.
Support. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have public comment on the agenda. There will be public comment later in the meeting for the golf cart ordinance and the resolution about the disposal of real property, the county home, and the adjacent 5.39 acres. So any other public comment on any other items? Mr. Morgan.
My name is Charlie Morgan. My address is 6252 West, 400 North, LaPorte. And I'm here tonight to address a new intersection at Johnson Road and 400. I've lived there all my life, which has been a long time. The intersection, to me, is beautiful and so forth, but why in the world they did not put a turning light to turn from Johnson Road when you're going east onto 400 North? Especially, they have beautiful lines there and so forth for directing you. But when winter comes, and cars are wanting to turn and so forth especially, and in my lifetime I've been on the volunteer fire department 43 years, we've had 2 deaths there due to turning problems over the years. And right now, when you come up there, if you're coming from LaPorte going west on Johnson, 2 cars, one has the turning light to turn left onto 400 going west. The other car sits and waits, of course. But then the cars that are going east towards LaPorte on Johnson, if they want to turn onto 400 going east, why, about the time you start to turn, that light changes, and then that extra car that's alongside, then it takes off to go west. And I've almost seen a couple accidents there, and I know that as time goes on, when it's not so new, that people will get in a big hurry and that there'll be a problem there. I live there. I know I go that way sometimes 2-3 times a day. And I just don't understand that we spent all that money to put in a new intersection and so forth, and that we can't have an extra light there for a turning lane.
So you're saying coming from Michigan City,
right?
And you want to turn left,
right?
And there's no turn signal.
There's no turning light.
Didn't realize that.
And it's very, very, very easy to figure out. Just go out there, and especially early in the morning and at night when there's a lot of traffic, you'll very easily see what I'm talking about.
I know we've had a lot of road rage out there over the years. You can certainly check that out with Mitch.
Yep.
See what can be done. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't
Okay.
realize that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Anyone else from the public wish to speak at this time? Anyone else from the public wish to speak at this time? Hearing no comments, public comment is closed. We'll move to department head comments.
Hi, Darlene Hale, LaPorte County IT Director. I just want to give you an update on the email. You know, we're going to the Microsoft 365. We're still on schedule to complete that at December 16th. At that time, we are also changing our domain. It's going to be laporteco.in.gov. So, you know, that will interchange with the webpage also on the go date, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Also, I just want to give you an update that Sentinel-1 has been fully deployed on the county side, and I believe fully deployed now on the sheriff and the 911 side too.
And Darlene, those were recommendations from our security expert, cybersecurity experts?
Yes. Okay. And we are going with, we're trying to implement the the email will have dual factor authentication completely. And then also for the super users, and I'll bring Tony up for that, we had for our webpage, we had a super user meeting, and that's actually going to be through, you know, economic development, but I'll let you speak on that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
How are you? Tony Rodriguez, Community and Economic Development. We had a very productive meeting with our contractor who's redoing the county's website, with the primary focus being as you've mentioned on numerous occasions, the original website having been designed and implemented prior to the iPhone even being developed. So attention to mobile device friendly security being at the highest priority, and the two-factor authentication for any of the super users that will have access to changes. But the key is a targeted rollout for the end of 2019 is when, and they're on schedule at this point. They're all hands on deck at this point, doing their QA/QC, and they are. But we had an extremely 100% turnout for our super user in the first series of training with department heads and those super users.
And at that time, the domain, instead of laportecounty.org, it would be laporteco.in.gov. Also, but if somebody happened to type laportecounty.in.gov, it should also redirect to our webpage, our new webpage.
So I think that's important, Darlene, because people will have their cards distributed, and it should point for, I would say, at least a couple of years. It should be redirected.
Correct. If email will do that same thing. So
right.
If somebody, if you have current email coming in to laportecounty.org, it will auto forward to the new email addresses.
Well, thanks for talking about the super user group, because it was 100% turnout. We have had representatives from every department. Could you explain to the public, in just plain speak, what's the point of the super user group and what our goal is with the accuracy on the site, which has been a scourge on LaPorte County because we just haven't gotten it right for the last while, and we need to. Our aim is to do, if not perfect, do much better at maintaining a good site. So, if you could explain the role of the super user and what our strategy is around that.
Yes, absolutely. I think today, what drives a successful website and one that's responsive to the public, to the demand and really what that inquiry is coming into the county website. We're fortunate to have a local firm, small firm, which they of course hope to be growing. Us being their first governmental client will provide them the opportunity to have been through this particular juncture. They are doing a tremendous job of making it user-friendly. But the key is for us to assure that all the links that are currently dead are going into a particular outdated portal, just no longer an active and usable tool. We want to make sure that, and the key with the super users group is we've used a method of determining where the overlaps lie within the county and where the stakeholder groups and how they commingle. So the super user may be representing 2.5 departments, 3 departments in some cases, and they're bringing their technical skill and knowledge to being able to keep those updates fresh,
right,
and keep them timely. Because for all of the boards and commissions that exist within the county, there is a large number of minutes and agendas that require constant update. So I know right now a lot of the time is being spent on the repeatability, the ability to get those updates done we're hoping to be real time. We won't get that good. However, we will have tremendous, a much more user-friendly portal to be able to update. So the super users will be not only literate in the ability to update, they'll be highly trained, and it's a much smaller group of those doing the updates, and just accessible.
Right. So our goal is to have those super users stay in constant contact with those departments that they're managing at that point, to keep the content current
and accurate,
anything,
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be a big thing. And then with the minutes, and this is a future project, but it's one thing that we had discovered and discussed at the super user meeting was with all the minutes and agendas minutes and ordinances and resolutions from the past, which are accessed all the time. That's one of the huge things that our current website is used for. We're going to try to get those to where they're OCR, so then at that point you could type in Pine Lake and pull anything that had to do with Pine Lake, any ordinance, any minutes, any something to that effect. But that's in the future. But that's one of our goals that we have set, that we would like, between working with the auditor and the commissioners, to be able to have that accessible for the public. Because I know I've searched for certain ordinances, and and the way we currently do it, which is the way we've done it, and we're never instructed to change, we list it by the ordinance number, right, or the resolution number. And so then you got to kind of browse through the whole thing to figure out if that's the one you want.
Down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Rabbit hole of ordinances and resolutions.
But they're there.
Too many clicks.
Yeah.
We're trying
Thank you. I think that's going to be a great future project. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Well, thank you.
Any other department heads that wish to speak at this time?
Good evening, Commissioners. Larry Lewandowski, Director of Facilities. I wanted to come tonight and just give you a short update on our year-end report of how our buildings stand. Beginning of the year, we spent some time, we went around to all our facilities, did an analysis of life safety, mechanical, and some cosmetic things that needed to be done. We concentrated mainly this year on life safety and mechanical because of what we found. We ended up spending an estimated about $47,000 just on life safety issues this year. It ranged anywhere from, we had to replace a fire alarm panel that was not working properly, a lot of sprinkler systems that were inoperable. We have now operable. We found a lot of issues, some carpeting issues that needed to be taken care of for tripping hazards and stuff. There's just a few of the things that we were able to take care of this year. Mechanically, we started updating a lot of our lighting. We got into an LED where we're starting to save some money that way with our NIPSCO costs. We found some dampers that were not working properly, so we've started changing out a lot of the dampers, getting them so that the exhaust is working much better through our buildings. It helps with the air that we have inside of them. We found a lot of leaks, repaired those leaks, got it so you're not walking in and getting rained on as you're walking around. Makes it safer for the employees. Like I said, those are just a few of the things that we got done. Mechanically, we ended up spending roughly around $37,000 to get those issues taken care of. We did start on some cosmetic issues that needed to be taken care of while we were working on the other issues. As long as we're in there, we took care of them. There's a lot of other ones, and we utilized some of the cosmetic. The departments helped to chip in to make it so it wasn't such a burden on the department. It was hand in hand, and we were able to get a little bit more done that way. We started looking at contracts throughout the year of our previous vendors that we were using. We're changing quite a few of them. Coming into 2020, we're looking at being able to save roughly about 30% of what we've spent in the past with our vendors that we've used, which is, to me, is going to be a good savings, but we're not losing any service on it. During this year, we started the EMS relocation. The building started, footings are all in. They're starting construction of the walls next week. It had come in over budget. We've got it inside of budget, and we're still working to save more money on it as we go. Some of the things we've done is we've got the lights working throughout the courthouse as a nice historical thing, and the bell is working. Again, it's just nice to see a historical thing working again. Pretty much in closing, I look at this going into 2020, we're going to be running a lot more efficient, and we have a lot safer buildings. I feel a lot more comfortable as we close out this year.
Thank you, Larry. I don't know if Commissioner Merzinski would like to speak, but I would like to thank you. Even the small things that you have done that may not seem like a big thing to you, but for example, broken latches and bathroom doors that don't click correctly, or toilet paper or paper towel dispensers that are hanging on the wall. Those are the little things that your men and your team, not only men and women, have fixed over the last 12 months. And I know the employees have expressed their appreciation for that. So it looks like not only are you going to be saving things in 2020 with your analysis of the vendor contracts, and I really appreciate that, because that's money then we can put back into service in other ways. But that life and health and safety issues, that keeps the public safe when they're visiting the building, but it also keeps our employees safe and reduces our liability. So thank you for all of that. Appreciate you coming in and rolling up your sleeves and getting everything in order. Thank you.
Well, and I will say this. I sit there and I direct them, but it's the men and the women that are underneath that have done it and made it happen.
Yeah, you've got a great team.
Without their help, we wouldn't have it where we're at.
You've got a great team. You're a good leader and great team.
I agree. Madam President, Commissioner Brzezinski, if I could also, from my office's standpoint, commend Larry and the work that both Larry and Darlene did. They get Play of the Month honors last week for what they did in terms of the CMS rebuild. As Commission is aware, the bid came in over $500,000 over that expected. Larry and his team put together a new bid package, was able to invite good, strong bids. We worked over and supervised all that from the legal standpoint, but this commission, the public needs to know the effort that was made so that we could bring the EMS rebuild on budget, on time, and things are on track. And it was a huge accomplishment by his office. So I wanted to note that for the record.
Thank you. Any other department heads who wish to speak at this time?
Good evening, Bob Young, LaPorte County Highway.
Hi
I
there.
have a report on the most recent incident at Franklin Street Bridge. If you recall, the pickup ignored the signals and the lights and drove through on the bridge as the gate was coming down behind him. I believe the bridge tender was speaking to him on the intercom, and he finally realized he was someplace he shouldn't be. He backed up, damaging the gate, cracking the cross-arm gate. Then bridge tender finally opened the off-going gate so he could get off the bridge. With the help of Michigan City PD and I believe our insurance company, we have received a check for that $4,400 to repair that. So
good.
At least we got that one taken care of.
Excellent.
So,
good tracking that down. Thank you.
yeah, well, I think Michigan City PD did the most of it. Then they tracked this guy down in somewhere in Michigan, and they went to his address, and the place appeared to be abandoned. And the last I heard from John Jones at insurance was it looked like we're going to have to eat this. Then all of a sudden this check comes from AAA in the mail, so somehow they must have found him somehow. So
Well, that's great.
yeah. Thank you.
Detective work. Thank you. Any other department heads who wish to speak at this time?
Hi, Lynn Spivak, LaPorte County Treasurer. Just like to remind the public that their property taxes were due November 12th, but if you fail to pay them and you're delinquent, there's a 5% penalty right now. That 5% penalty will go to 10% after December 12th. So you got about 15, 18 days here to get your money in before it goes up another 5% penalty.
Excellent public service announcement.
Yeah, why not, right? We collected $54 million this round. So with the $73 million in the spring, my goal was always $125 million, and we're over that. But we still would like to get a couple more million. So every tax sale we have, we keep getting 800,000 to $1 million. So keep working on them.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Any other department heads who wish to speak at this time? All right, we'll move on to requests. First request, consider permission to approach the council for additional funds for utilities and office supplies. Steve Alt, E911 Director.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Steve Alt, 911 Director. We're a little short in our utilities and in our office supply account. Unfortunately, the state of Indiana doesn't allow us to use user fees or surcharge to pay for those items, and we need $3,000 to be transferred into those utilities and office supply accounts. And I would like permission to approach for the council for that.
Motion to approve your request to go to the council.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by aye. Aye.
And
Thank
since
you,
I'm
Steve.
already here, can I bring up one more? I didn't do department head comment,
Sure.
but I did. There is a 911. We are in version 4 of our 911 system. We are supposed to be at version 7. The state mandates that we need to be at version 7, and I'm working very hard to get to get us updated by the 2020. I think it's the end of 2020 is the deadline, and what that's going to entail is an 8-hour outage where we would have to transfer our services over to Porter County. So I'm going to work with the Porter County Director and get a new mutual understanding that we are each other's backup system, so public safety is not in any way jeopardized during this upgrade. There is also going to be an equipment that is optional equipment upgrade that the state is going to force us to do. We just don't know when, and it's going to have a lot of nuances that allow. And most of your PSAPs are going to this new equipment, and I will be asking permission at one time to go to the council for that as well. That will be covered under surcharge. So I just want to give you guys a little update on that too.
So for that 8 hours that there will be an outage, is that for software updates? Or is that for,
we have to go down for 8 hours for this. We are at version 4.
Okay.
We're supposed to be at version 7.
Right.
And apparently, prior to me coming on, there were they obviously was rejected these updates because they didn't want to go down for 8 hours. I can understand and appreciate that. We must go to this version 7 by the end of 2020.
Okay.
And yes, it would be an 8-hour outage, but we can do it strategically, where we're doing council at a time.
Yeah.
And it is only the 911 which can be transferred to Porter County during that time.
And we'll strategize around the time of the year where we're the slowest and the time of the day that we're the slowest, et cetera, et cetera.
I'd like to do this in January.
Not on July 4th weekend, for example.
And that would be the reason for if we're going to do the hardware upgrade, if we have the money to do the hardware upgrade, and we're going to be down for 8 hours, we might as well be down for 8 hours. There's only one 8-hour outage as opposed to 2 or 3 8-hour outages.
That might be a recommendation we make, that you discuss that with the council so that they're aware that that's coming and perhaps can anticipate how to fund that.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consider permission to approach council for funds for easement acquisition, utility relocation, and road construction. Jay Sullivan, engineer. Welcome, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I'd like permission to approach it. Well, first, thank you for seeing me again on the same subject. I wasn't completely comfortable with my numbers last time, so I wanted to get those straight. But I'd like to ask for permission to go see the council and request $210,000 for the Cougar Road project.
Permission granted to make a motion to grant permission to approach council.
Just for a little backup before we call the vote, just for the public's understanding, you're asking for $210,000. Could you talk a little bit about the project and what this would cover?
Yes, this is going to cover a turn lane. I'm going north to State Road 20 from the school. There's going to be about 600-foot addition for a turn lane. That's going to where the utilities, some utilities may have to be moved. Ditch has to be filled in. Road construction. And then going south, there will be a requirement for the commissioner and the council to make that a one-way, an ordinance to make that a one-way street. And NDOT has, they have a safety study that they have done, and this is what they recommend for safety issues there at that intersection.
Great, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor, which I will second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, obviously, same sign. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good job.
Next, we have consider request of LAD's program for office space on the second floor in the courthouse near the courts. Consider plan by facilities director to accommodate the request.
Make a motion to accept that request.
Could we talk a little bit about the request? I don't know who's presenting on that this evening. Is anyone presenting?
Larry? Not to my knowledge. Larry can, I guess. We've been certainly working on it.
We've looked at an area on the second floor. It seems like the most efficient way. We have to add a couple of doors to it. We're not going to have to do any real wall repairs or anything. There were two ladies that were in it. We found a location to put them. The room next to it, we moved some file cabinets. They were pretty much all empty file cabinets. The room was used to store the file cabinets. Right now, for the timeline that we're in, needing LADs to be moved by the first of the year, we can get them moved by the first of the year within the next few weeks and get them in and get it resolved for the time being, I believe.
Okay, I have a couple questions, and it might be Mr. Friedman or Joey. Maybe you can help. So, who supervises the LADS program? Where does that program live?
That Judge Thorne supervises the LADS program.
Okay, so.
And he has asked for the last 2 years to move LADS up to the second floor, but we have never had enough space up there. So, that's.
So, I haven't walked through this week, but there's a large space up there, and Judge Thorne has 2 employees. Is that the space that we're talking about then?
We did. I looked at it with Kathy the other day. Price-wise,
can you tell her where it is?
It's in the traffic court area. It's in the traffic court area.
It's on the northwest side.
So on the northeast side. So we're looking at the northwest side now. We're looking at the northeast also. The problem with that is just as mainly cost. We would have a little more construction. You're looking at roughly of $13,000 to $14,000 to do it in the traffic court area, because we would have to build a little entryway, and then we'd have to build a full wall. On the opposite side, we'd have to put in 2 doorways. It would be roughly around $3,800 to get done. So we're looking at about a $10,000 difference.
Okay, so is Judge Thorne aware of all of these plans?
To my knowledge, he is. He's certainly desirous of having LADs there. And as Mr. Lewandowski indicates, this particular option is about $10,000 less than the other option. And so it's required to get LADs a home up there by the first of the year. And so I think this was recommended as the best option for you to consider.
And I will say that Judge Thorne and I walked through that area last year on the opposite side, though, of the building from where Larry's talking about. And so he knows what we have to do. And there's a lot of kind of wasted space up there.
Right.
There's a lot of the filing cabinets, it's something we looked at. There's a lot of file cabinets on a lot of weight in this area that needs to get taken care of on that side before we can really start doing any moves.
So who's currently in the space that you're talking about renovating?
It was Superior Court 3 clerks.
So are they okay with being relocated?
We've relocated the 2 desks into an area that they had room, and so we've got the area already vacated out.
Okay.
But again, it's commissioners and the landlords of the building. You've got to make a determination in terms of what's most suitable. And my understanding from both your facilities director and IT director is that this is probably most feasible for you.
The 2 employees that were moved, they're part-time employees. They work a couple days a week, from what they had told us. They moved into another file room just on the other side of the clerk's office. The big thing with this is, the time constraint and the funds. So, this is the solution, the best solution that we could come up with to get lads moved by January 1st.
Okay, so here's one of my concerns. In government, we tend to do things very reactively. Okay, we've got 30 days. Oh my gosh, we got to quickly move. So it might save money, but is this the permanent best solution for this problem? I'm hearing that it might not be, that big space that Judge Thorne has, which may require a wall being put up for privacy and all that, could be the permanent home. And I'm just asking some pertinent questions. I don't, yes, it's a $10,000 saving, but it won't be a savings if in 4 years we have to move again, or the clerk's office needs that space, or there's some other impending crisis that makes us move again. Then we're moving people, we're rebuilding, we're taking down walls that we just put up. I just want to be sure that we're taking a measured approach. The December 31st deadline, I understand, but we could house them temporarily while we finish the project. I just want to be sure that it's the absolutely best choice for all the people involved. So I guess, Joey, could you address that perhaps?
Well, Judge Thorne is, like I just said, is in charge of the program, and he'd like to have them on the second floor. We housed them temporarily in the probation department for the last almost 9 months,
right?
And now with the Criminal Rule 26 program coming in, probation is going to need that space.
Right.
So they need 2 small rooms. They don't need large rooms, but they do need one of the rooms to be a confidential space. So this seemed like the best option. I don't know of anywhere else. Last year we looked all over the courthouse and through the complex to try to put them somewhere. Judge would like them in close proximity.
Okay.
So this was the best option.
Okay.
So, and this is completely up to the commissioners. This could be a temporary move, and then, once we have time and money and everything allocated, there's actually a couple different rooms, if you're getting rid of filing cabinets, that you could move traffic to and, or lads to, or, you could reutilize the space. Technology is actually in the floor, kind of ready for them now. But I think with what Larry is proposing, there's only 2 doors actually being installed. Mm-hmm. That's currently where we're at. There isn't going to be a lot. We're not building an extra wall or anything to have to take down later. It's only 2 doors, which they could, in turn leave open in the future if that's what you guys see fit.
And with that being done, when you put doors, you actually make a private room that they could use, and it would be a better use for something later on down.
Well, to be completely transparent, I've heard that there was a hubbub about this at the courthouse building, and I really want to be respectful of everyone's space and everyone's desires. I think that sounds like a good, Darlene, the way you stated it, that it could be changed because it's not a huge investment. You've answered my questions. I just want to be sure that we're being mindful of making changes that are not. We're not throwing good money after bad, and in a couple of months saying, "Oh, we should have done it this way or that way." So, just Larry, I trust that you are making good decisions, and so I would be able to support this. So, entertain a motion.
So, I'd make a motion that we go with the direction that the facilities director has outlined for us.
Okay, I would support that. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Darlene. Next, we have consider request for approval to post and advertise for 2020 fuel bids by Sheriff Boyd.
Good evening. We are seeking permission to seek bids for fuel for 2020. Specifically, we're looking to try to go to a system in which we have an itemized credit system where we have the ability to get fuel for our fleet throughout the county.
We've talked about this. That's a good idea. I would make a motion that we honor that request from the sheriff.
I would support that with a question. If you could just explain for public consumption what the change will be in your operations and how this would be much more efficient for your team.
Currently, we have a system where we get gasoline in LaPorte, and we have a location in Wanata where we can get fuel. We're finding that we're spending time and we're spending money driving from our districts to either LaPorte or, I said Wanata, it's actually Hannah, to get fuel. We're looking to adopt a system that many other sheriff's offices throughout the state, including Lawrence County and the Porter County Sheriff's Office, also the Indiana State Police use, where they have an itemized credit system where they can get fuel at gas stations throughout their district or throughout the county.
It's more efficient and more effective.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the request from the sheriff.
I would support that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Consider recommendation for bid material for County Highway. Mr. Young?
Yes, Bob Young, LaPorte County Highway again. These are the highway recommendations for the material bids that were opened in your last meeting. First is Class 1, crushed limestone. Only one bidder in this class, so that's easy there. It'd be U.S. Aggregates will be our primary bidder. Class 2, bituminous patching, that's cold patch that we patch potholes with, and wrap materials, wrap being recycled asphalt. 4 bidders, Reith Riley Construction, Walsh & Kelly, Fend & Brown, Central Paving. We'll accept all these bids. I explained to you earlier before the meeting the reason for that. Reith & Riley and Walsh & Kelly, they make a average run-of-the-mill patch that works good. Fend & Brown, they make a superior patch that they call it a permanent patch. It really stays in the holes well, but it's a little more expensive, so we kind of limit when and where we use that. And Central Paving as well, they make a in January, we can get fresh, hot patch from them. I mean, when they dump it on the ground, it's steaming, smoking, and it's very easy to work with in cold weather. So that's the reason we accept all 4 of those bids. Next would be Class 3, blast furnace slag. 2 bidders, Phoenix Services, Beamster Bore Aggregates. Again, we'll accept both of those bids. In case there's an issue of delivery or supply with one of the bidders, then we have a secondary bid to fall back on. That will be Phoenix Service will be our primary because they are low. Across the board, our primary bidder is low bidder, but we accept the secondary as well just for a backup, a safety net. Class 5, no lead diesel and E85. 2 bidders, Triple J Bar Petroleum and Petro Choice. That's the old Rackham service here, east side of town. What we do with the fuel bids, the day we order fuel, our garage foreman will call both of these fuel suppliers, and whoever's got the lowest daily rack price that day gets the order. Because the taxes are all the same. It's just for some reason one can be a little half a penny cheaper or something per gallon. So that's how we do the fuel. Class 6, signs and sign posts. 2 bidders, Hall Signs, Osborne Associates. We'll accept both bids with, excuse me, I don't have my glasses. What we do here too is kind of like the fuel. There's so many different items. I've only got one more to go. There's so many different items in the signs, as Shaw can tell you. I think one time he tried to go through there and read all the items, and there's just, I mean, hundreds of different items. And what we do when we get a big order ready, we go through and try to sort out who's cheapest. Because you got nuts and bolts and brackets and posts and all kinds of stuff. So we try to save money and go the cheapest way. Class 7, culvert pipes and guardrail. 2 bidders, Devco Metal Culverts and Metal Culverts, Inc. Again, we'll accept both bids. Sometimes service becomes an issue. If we get in an emergency, we need a big specially made culvert, whoever, we'll get an estimate of how the delivery time. So sometimes it might pay a little more for that culvert, but if we can get it a week earlier and get the road open back up. So again, that's why we accept both of those bids. That's all I have.
I appreciate the way you do business. Just save our county a lot of money and get the job done in the most effective way. I'd make a motion that we accept the recommendations of our superintendent.
I would support that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
I do have one question, Bob, about the fuel, diesel, and no lead. Have you considered using the approach that the sheriff is talking about where, I mean, our county is geographically so enormous. How many places, physical places, do we have to fill our trucks?
We have 3. We have the main garage in LaPorte, east in Rolling Prairie, and south in Hannah.
I'm just wondering if you would confer with the sheriff's department and maybe let their program run for a couple months and then see if we can't figure out a way to we might be able to save some money. For the trucks heading out to fuel in 3 locations is probably, we're wasting some miles there.
Well, I know what we do in some cases, like some of the guys out of the LaPorte unit, they plow in the southeast part of the county. So at times they're closer to the Hannah unit to get fuel and salt and sand, so we do that already. But
okay.
Yeah, we can take a look at that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, consider on first reading the ordinance to permit use of golf carts and off-road vehicles on certain county roads. Is anyone presenting on this or no?
If I could address it briefly, Commissioners, this is the latest version of our draft ordinance that we asked to be agended for first reading tonight. We've added hours of operation as requested by the sheriff, a specific prohibition on anything after sunset and before sunrise, which is what the department requested, along with putting a specific limitation on usage on any county roads where speed limit is over 30 miles an hour. We even provided a section where any portion of county road of under 30 mile per hour might still be restricted where you as commissioners feel normal traffic is so excessive as to make usage particularly risky. This latest version is drawn heavily from Delaware's county ordinance that was adopted 2 years ago. It does put all the risk and liability on drivers and their passengers and does not place the county in a legal position of warranting our roadways as fit or appropriate for such vehicles. We're then not in the position or the business of having to provide inspections, providing stickers, or verifying suitability of any given equipment. That liability is strictly on the owner. And there are requirements in terms of what type of equipment is suitable for this type of usage. But we wanted to bring it to you for first reading, so you should get any comments and then perhaps consider any tweaks or changes to it for the next reading.
Mr. Friedman and I have been working on this, and we've asked people from Hannah, from Union Mills, from Saugony Lake, Rolling Prairie for input. And then also we have a resource with all the county commissioners in the state, a little thing called Base Camp, and I've asked other commissioners. That's where we've got several different versions of ordinances. And as Mr. Friedman said, this one seemed to make the most sense because it takes the county's liability out of it, and I believe it'll work good. We had to do something. We had a lot of complaints last year from people that were totally abusing the whole thing, with letting their kids ride them, riding through towns, riding through people's yards, knocking things over, and so the sheriff's department had to respond to the complaints. And found out that it's not a big deal. It's just a few little places. I think we know where the problems are. I think this will take care of the problems, especially the first time somebody gets a fine. But it's a good, no-nonsense type ordinance. I'm really happy with it myself.
So one question or two, Mr. Friedman. Thank you, Mr. Mrzinski. That's a great explanation. Can you clarify for public consumption how old you have to be driving a golf cart on county roads?
Sure. I mean, you've got to have a driver's license. Any person holding a valid Indiana motor vehicle operator license or a comparable license issued by another state. This applies to other low-speed vehicles as well. It could include not only golf carts, but personal assist mobility devices, other off-road vehicles. So we try to make it as inclusive as we could. And I think it's important to note that any off-road vehicle has to be equipped with headlights, taillights, mirror, horn. It can't, and even those who operate by medical prescription operating a personal assist mobility device must have that specific prescription. All other ordinances apply, and as Commissioner Brzezinski mentioned, there is a stiff fine attached, so that we come up with those situations where there is non-permitted use, then stiff fines can be applied as well. So that may be a deterrent to the kind of conduct that Commissioner Brzezinski rightly complained about, and we saw complained about by a number of residents. So we're trying to strike the proper balance with this latest version and hoping we get there.
Good, thank you. I have a question for Sheriff Boyd. We've discussed it offline, but there are sections in our county that may not be rural, where golf carts are being used and, quite frankly, abused. I have a personal interest in this, and I'll be real transparent. When one of my sons was young, he was run over by a golf cart and his femur was broken, and it was operated by a youth. It was a total accident, total mistake, but I am really concerned about kids driving golf carts. They don't know that it's a vehicle that actually can harm and maim. So there are areas in Michigan City where there's a lot of golf cart use, and I just cringe when I see young people. I'm sure anyone who's driven down Lakeshore Drive sees golf carts whizzing around, and many times driven by youth carrying other younger kids hanging off the back, and it just... So, where does this ordinance take effect, and what will be our control on areas that don't have similar ordinances? Or could you explain that so the public understands?
Anywhere in the unincorporated rural area of the county.
So only unincorporated areas?
Yes, so it wouldn't be in effect in the city of Michigan City, the town of Long Beach, the city of LaPorte, and so on.
So only unincorporated areas. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Kind of further enforces the need for something like this, because everybody who's been riding golf carts up till now, it's illegal. Yeah. And especially, and I think Long Beach even has their own.
Yeah, they
ordinance.
may. I don't know. I live in Michigan City,
and they have an ordinance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know in Michigan City where I live, it's becoming, I think, increasing problem as the area has gotten much more dense. And,
well, as the sheriff stated last summer, when they had complaints with kids riding them, they took the kids to their parents and said, breaking the law, you need to get them off the carts.
Right.
So I would make a motion that we approve the reading of the golf cart ordinance on the first reading.
At this time, before we call a vote, let's have open a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this first reading on this ordinance at this time?
My name is John Matwisher, and I'm Deputy Trustee in Hudson Township. One thing that I don't know if the committee considered is quadriplegics in motorized wheelchairs. I heard assistive devices, but I haven't noticed any in LaPorte County yet, but in St. Joe County, where I lived prior to that, we had several individuals who were quadriplegic that would take their wheelchairs in areas where people would walk. So basically, and that included areas with no sidewalks. So they would be on the street.
Personalized assist mobility devices, any 3- or 4-wheeled motorized vehicle used to assist medically handicapped persons travel from one place to another.
Okay. Yeah, I considered quadriplegics a separate category from people with mobility devices, but it's in there. Apparently.
Yeah, it is for medically handicapped. Thank you, sir. Any members of the public who wish to speak at this time?
Good evening, Alan Stevens, 5277 West, 1475 South Hannah. I'm also the president of the South County Community Coalition, and we've had a lot of issues in South County, but none that have sparked the ire of all of our neighbors more than the golf cart thing. And I'd like to thank thank the commissioners for addressing this issue. I guess I had one question, maybe for Mr. Friedman, if you could clarify the speed restriction part of it. I wasn't entirely clear about that.
Yeah, currently, it under the current draft, we would confine it to those roads with speed limits under 30 miles per hour. The commission has the opportunity to change that if they wish, but it was felt that again, the vehicle itself has to have a maximum design speed of not more than 35 miles per hour, but it can only be used on roads of under 30 miles an hour. That's how the current draft looks. And I'll give you, Mr. Stephen, why don't I give you a copy? And again, that was the whole point of first reading, so that commissioners could receive any comments, input, but that way, if you've got any changes you want to propose, that way they certainly can take a look at it. But currently, it's 30 miles an hour. But
that was a concern I had, is that a lot of people, they go from, say, in Hannah, from the campground to town. People come from Union Mills to Hannah and vice versa. And there's not a lot of areas of the county where the speed limit is 30 or under. And I think a lot of people were hoping to be able to drive between Hannah and Union Mills, the campground in Hannah, and different things. So that was kind of one hiccup in it for me. I don't know if there's anything else that can be done with the speed limit restriction. I mean, I'm with Sheriff Boyd. I don't want to see golf carts driving down Johnson Road at 5 in the afternoon on Friday. That's a recipe for disaster. Mm-hmm. But maybe some of the more rural areas, there's something we can do. That's
what they've been doing. Yeah, when you're crossing US 30, they're breaking the law. And we can't enforce anything on US 30. But I know that they go from the campground into Hannah. We know that. And God bless them if they don't get killed.
I mean, it's a public safety that we were just trying to build in some public safety. If you want to make a recommendation, maybe go back to the South County Coalition and discuss it and bring us some recommendations. Can we amend on second reading?
Certainly. Yeah. And you may want to suggest either a different mileage in MPH or specific roads. I mean, one of the things the department has talked about, it's probably not appropriate on Johnson Road, Fail Road, some of the really highly traveled roads. And so this ordinance gives the commissioners the opportunity to designate certain roads that even if it is under 30, if there's excessive regular vehicular traffic, it's not permitted out there. So any additional input like that, I think, will be very valuable for the commissioners on second reading.
Correct. And the other thing was the licensed driver aspect of it. This covers personal mobility devices, wheelchairs and things of that nature. Those people wouldn't have a driver's license. And then we've had questions from some elderly people in Hannah and Union Mills that don't drive cars anymore, but they use their golf cart to go to the post office, to go to the park. So
that's a very good point.
So I think the reason we put the driver's license in there is so the kids 9 years old aren't driving them.
Yeah. Correct, and that nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Maybe we can talk about that.
And this is largely drawn, part of the reason for this appeal to the commission is the success in Delaware County. So you may want to explore down there with anyone if there are any reactions, input down there. But this was viewed to be something workable that's been in place for a couple of years in Delaware County. But I'm sure the commissioners will welcome any additional input on second reading.
Oh, yeah. Just if we may do something about the speed limit thing, that would be...
Yeah, I think the speed limit is certainly something we would be interested in discussing. And you make a really good point about elderly and people with disabilities that may not have a driver's license, but still can and need to get around. And so perhaps there's a recommendation your community can make, and we would look at that next meeting.
Excellent. And we thought this was kind of a South County thing, and it turns out that the island in LaPorte, Hudson Lake, Saugony Lake, Fish Lake, it's kind of pockets all over the county. So again,
all those communities you mentioned, they've all got a lot of people that have golf carts, and they've been using them for years. Hasn't been an issue until people started letting their kids going crazy on them, and we had a lot of complaints. They've been getting along famously, and people that drive the golf cart in Saugony Lake, they're not going to be dumb enough to go out on US 20 and try to drive it. We have to protect people from themselves, I guess. But just trying to get this a first step to try to get something so that those people in Saugony Lake and Hudson Lake, Rolling Prairie, Hannah, Union Mills can ride down to the mill pond or ride down to whatever. It's a nice, peaceful, small town Indiana thing.
And insurance covers, if people have insurance on their golf cart, talking to a couple agents, it covers legal operation of your golf cart. And if there's no county ordinance allowing legal operation of your golf cart and you get in an accident out on the road, that could be a sticking point with some of the insurance companies too. So that's another reason we appreciate you guys addressing this.
Thank you. We'd look forward to hearing some recommendations at our next meeting.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on this ordinance at this time? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed, and we will have it on second reading at our next meeting. Moving along, responses to the RFP for Employment Assistance Services. Barb Mossman, HR Director.
Good evening, Commissioners. Barb Mossman. I put out a request for proposal for our Employee Assistance Program, and we received in 2 bids for that.
Okay.
Okay, I believe both bids are timely received by the response date. The first is from New Avenues Incorporated EAP price quote for our 813 employees. They list, it's broken down by the fitness for duty evaluations, complete wellness solutions. This particular bid is a capitated fee of $1.25. Critical incident response, 15 hours included in the capitated fee to be used to be chosen by employer. Additional hours may be purchased as needed for $250 an hour. I guess we're having a problem with the second, but we're going to get there.
It's secure anyway, huh?
Complete Wellness Solutions, 59 cents per member for behavioral health, $1.25 for medical. Peer support, 45 cents per member. Mileage at the current IRS rate. And then our reports, capitated for EAP, $1.25 per. Monthly cost of $1,000.16 a month. Annual cost on this particular program, $12,195. And so that is the New Avenues proposal. And they've included pens, too, with their proposal. The second is from Deer Oaks EAP Services. Find a bid in here. See it around it. Over here. They've not. The EAP cost estimates are blank on this particular. Unless we're missing the attachment. I have it in here. Is it webinar catalog?
I don't see it.
Well, we refer it as is. Request for quotes. RFQ, response to attachments and questionnaire. Their response: integrated employee assistance and enhanced work-life program, 3-visit model, $1.31 per member. Mindfulness stress-based program included, vital group counseling included, enhanced work-life, travel expense included, on-site orientation in their service list, $300 per hour, training catalog seminars $300 per hour, webinar catalog seminars $150 per hour, 2-hour on-site critical support event beyond the 6-hour bank, $600 per 2-hour event. Full service mediation, $300 per hour. So they do have a mediation piece in this particular proposal. And telephone executive coaching, $500 per hour. So that's their proposal. It would be our suggestion the commission accept and receive both proposals, refer them to the department head for a comparison and kind of an apples to apples comparison, and come back with a recommendation to you if we could.
Great.
I'd make that motion.
We have a motion to refer it to HR and to our county attorney. I would second that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved. Next on our agenda, we are going to open a public hearing to consider approval of the disposition of real property.
Thanks.
The real property in question is commonly known as 2852 West State Road 2, LaPorte, Indiana, also known as the county home property. This has been property that has been discussed for several years, and the county council has asked us to begin to move on that. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing regarding the 2852 West State Road 2 disposition of county real property. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak at this time? Anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this subject at this time? Okay, last call. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this subject at this time? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed, and we will move on to consider resolution approving the disposition and disposal of real property, the county home and adjacent 5.39 acres pursuant to Indiana Code 36-1-11-3. Mr. Merzinski.
I would make a motion that we approve the resolution and move forward with the disposal.
I would support that. Since we've already had a public hearing and there was no public comment, is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this resolution at this time? We're keeping with our vow to be transparent and open to the public, so if there's no one who wishes to speak, I call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The resolution has passed. We'll move on to new business. First off, consider appointment to the LaPorte County Public Library Board to fill the vacancy created by Sean Quinn's election to the County Council. At this time, we have a really great candidate. Michelle Shirk has come forward and offered to accept our interest in her serving as on the LaPorte Public Library Board. She is a LaPorte resident. She is a parent with small children who use the library frequently. Huge library fan. Her profession, she is an attorney who is currently not practicing as an attorney, and she works at the Lebesnick Art Center. I've had several conversations with her, and she's very much a library advocate, and I think would be a great appointment. So Any comments, Mr. Brzezinski?
I don't really know the lady, but she comes highly recommended, and I would make a motion that we appoint her.
Okay, great. I would support that. So all those in favor of appointing Michelle Shirk to the LaPorte Public Library Board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So welcome, Michelle. Next on the agenda, consider a temporary license to permit access by NIPSCO crews onto county parking lot to permit upgrades to the adjoining NIPSCO substation. And Mr. Warren, I believe you're here. Hi there.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Warren, and I'm an attorney representing NIPSCO in connection with real estate matters. And I appreciate you getting this on the agenda this evening. It's a area just off of Washington Street adjacent to a substation. There's some upgrades being made. It's a fairly short-term project, but there will be some access to county parking area that NIPSCO would use during the course of that. And so this license agreement addresses that use, as well as indemnification and other issues. Worked with Attorney Friedman to get an acceptable draft into your hands, and that's what's before you tonight. If there's some questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman, maybe you can just go through this.
Sure.
To make sure
as you know, we were initially concerned about simply providing an easement to use the parking lot while working on the substation without having proper hold harmless language. As Mr. Warren indicates, we've negotiated the temporary license with our local attorney, Kevin Warren, which provides for protections in the county in the event something occurs and there is some damage to county property. This way it will allow usage onto our lot. They've got to do that. There are some, to this point, they've been working from the street. They do need access via the county parking lot. I think they're looking for it in very short-term usage. And as I understand it, there are no environmental issues with the substation, because I asked Mr. Warren to double-check that for everyone's concern. But this is simply the opportunity to provide NIPSCO crews the opportunity to have closer access for repairs and modifications to the substation. So we're recommending approval of this temporary license.
Okay, a couple of questions. How long will this access be needed?
We think it may be a week or less, actually.
Okay.
Just if the background's helpful, and I can't get too deeply into the sort of electrical explanations because I'm just not capable, but my understanding is that there was a circuit that was retired in connection with some city beautification project, and so what's happening here is within that substation there's a circuit tie switch that's being installed, and so it's not a huge project, but it's just a matter of getting crews access into that area for that purpose.
Okay, thank you.
269 kV circuits, you have a motor-operated tie switch that will give it redundancy to feed. I worked in NIPSCO for 37 and a half years. I watched you guys out there. I've had very good I've had cooperation with your guys out there, talking to them. In fact, they're kind of like a show. I see people standing out there looking, watching to see what they're doing. I don't miss it, okay? But they've been very, very easy to work with. And like they explained, they may not have to come in the parking lot at all. And we've asked a few people that park up on that end to temporarily move it up, but it's been very cooperative, so I got no problem. I got no problem with recommending, make a motion that we accept the documentation provided by Mr. Friedman.
I'd support that. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We've got it.
Yeah,
Thank you
very
sir.
much.
Next, we have commissioners' comments. Mr. Brzezinski.
Oh, yes. We had our meeting tonight of the small animal shelter, which I've been a member of that for 13 years. I love it. And it's one of the big events in LaPorte, believe it or not. On Saturday, December 7th and the 14th, from 9 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, you take your pets out to the LaPorte County Fairgrounds, and you get your pictures taken with Santa. Believe it or not, it's very huge. People bring their dogs, cats, birds, iguanas. You take your pet rock, I suppose, but get your picture taken with Santa. It's $10 per picture per pet, and so you want to make sure you're December 7th to 14th at the fairgrounds from 9 to 1. And if you've been watching the news at all about yesterday, the huge demonstration we had in Indianapolis, and also we had right out here at our courthouse, the Red for Ed. Teachers don't make enough money, and neither do cops. I support that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski. As a former teacher, I applaud your respect for teachers.
I mean, like that.
Yeah, I do. Our children are our future, and investing in them is, and not investing in them is really short-sighted. And investing in them through great teachers and making teaching a profession that people aspire to is just really the right thing to do. I have a couple things I wanted to talk about. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the Highway Department with Dwayne and with Bob regarding snow removal, and we discussed some strategies that are being used in counties around us. We had our first very early snow, and we were ready, which is great. The Highway Department and their team were poised and ready, and we got our notices out nice and early that we were expecting snow, and they did a great job. Just wanting to make sure that we're using the most current strategies, and so comparing, have done some research around what Porter County is doing, what St. Joseph County is doing, and we had a really productive discussion about looking at some of those strategies and seeing if there's ways we can do even better than we currently do. So thank you for that, gentlemen. I've had a couple questions about KIP and some of the language that we had at our last meeting, and so I just wanted to be sure that the public knows that the $6 million that was invested by the county some years ago is not money that just went poof into the air. We are very transparent in funding. Ms. Winsky and Mrs. Deckard do a really good job of making sure that when a member of the public wants to know something about a project, they are welcome to come down, and there's volumes of documents on that particular project, but that those records are available. People can examine them, look at them, ask questions about them. So there's no smoke and mirrors around the $6 million. I just want to be really clear about that because I heard some conversation. We're trying to do our best to get KIP where it needs to be so that it can be an economic development magnet, and further investment of our time and resources seems to be the very, very best strategy moving forward. And we've got a lot of great minds around that have been working hard. So that $6 million, while it was seed money, it was not wasted money. It was money that is going to be get a good return on that investment. Then the last thing I wanted to mention is that the county team lost a really good person this last couple of weeks. Kent Carpenter worked for the county for 30 years. He started on June 25th, 1989, and worked mostly in building maintenance. At the last little bit, he worked on the switchboard. But he, for those of us who have been around the county for a while, everyone knew his face. Everyone knew his smile. He was kind of like Mr. LaPorte County. Even when he didn't have to be here, he often was here. The buildings were his babies, and he took really good care of them. So I wanted to make sure that we mentioned his name at our meeting today. And then also the county employees want to honor him. And so on Friday, between 1 and 3, we're having a celebration of his life here in the county complex, and members of the public are welcome to join us. But we really want to honor somebody who's, just had a really good spirit and was dedicated to serving the public for 30 years is a long time. So just wanted to mention that. Unless you have something else, we will adjourn. Thank you so much.